The morning of June 15th in North Glen was unusually clear. The sun streamed through the lace curtains in Emily Harris's bedroom, illuminating the snow-white wedding dress hanging on the door of an antique wardrobe. The 24-year-old bride sat in front of the dressing table mirror, nervously fingering a string of pearls, a gift from her maternal grandmother. "Emily, dear, the hairdresser is downstairs." Margaret Harris's voice came through the bedroom door. Her mother entered without waiting for a reply, as was customary in their home. The 52-year-old woman in a blue suit looked impeccable, every gray hair neatly in place, her makeup applied with surgical precision. At the local hospital, where Margaret had been a senior nurse for 20 years, she was known as someone who never made mistakes. "Mom, I'm not ready yet," Emily said quietly, avoiding her mother's gaze in the mirror. Margaret moved closer, her hands resting on her daughter's shoulders. "Are you nervous? That's normal. Every bride is nervous. Remember how nervous I was before my wedding to your father?" Emily nodded, although her mother had never actually shared any details about her wedding. In their family, they didn't talk much about the past. Margaret always focused on the present and the future, as if the past was something unpleasant that was best forgotten. "Pierce is a good boy," Margaret continued, beginning to comb her daughter's hair. "He'll make a good husband, reliable, unlike some of the men in this town." Emily shuddered. She knew her mother was referring to Nicholas Harris, her father, who was an unpredictable man. The owner of a small hardware store on Main Street, he could be charming with customers, but at home he often fell into long periods of silence. Sometimes Emily felt as if her father lived in a world of his own, inaccessible to others. That morning, Nicholas stood in his study on the first floor, staring intently at an old photograph in a frame. The picture showed a young woman with dark hair and sad eyes. Emily had tried several times to ask her father who it was, but he always evaded the question or abruptly changed the subject. "Dad, are you ready?" Emily's voice made him flinch. He quickly turned the photo face down. "Of course, dear. I was just checking something." Nicholas walked over to his daughter and awkwardly hugged her. "You look beautiful, just like." "Like who?" Emily asked, but her father had already moved away to the window. "Like a princess," he finished without turning around. "Pierce is a lucky man." Meanwhile, in another part of town, in a small apartment above the Johnsons' auto repair shop, Pierce Collins was trying to tie his tie. The 26-year-old man was more nervous than he had expected. He had known Emily since childhood. They had gone to the same school, although she was 2 grades below him, but they had only become close a year ago, when Emily started bringing her father's old Ford to the garage. Pierce was popular in North Glen. He was a good mechanic, an honest guy who never cheated his customers and was always ready to help. His friends were surprised by his choice. The quiet librarian Emily seemed too serious for the fun-loving and outgoing Pierce, but he saw something in her that others didn't. Behind her shy exterior was an intelligent, sensitive woman who understood him better than he sometimes understood himself. "Are you nervous?" asked Mark Johnson, the son of the auto shop owner and Pierce's best friend. They had been friends since childhood, and Mark was supposed to be the best man at the wedding. "A little," Pierce admitted. "Not because of the wedding. Because of her family." Mark nodded understandingly. In a small town, everyone knew the Harris family. On the surface, they seemed perfect. A successful nurse, an entrepreneur, and a smart daughter. But those who knew them better noticed the oddities. Nicholas would disappear from the store for hours without explanation. Margaret was overly controlling, even by the standards of a caring mother. And Emily sometimes looked as if she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "She loves you," Mark said. "And you love her. The rest doesn't matter." Pierce nodded, but he couldn't shake his unease. A few weeks ago, he had noticed that Emily had become even more withdrawn. When he asked her what was wrong, she said she was just tired from wedding preparations. But there was something else in her eyes, fear, anxiety. He couldn't tell. St. Mark's Church, where the ceremony was to take place, was located in the heart of North Glen. The small stone building, built in the 1920s, could hold about 100 people, which was enough for the local community. Pastor William Graham, who had served at the church for 30 years, knew every family in town and their secrets. As the guests began to arrive, Pastor Graham noticed the unusual atmosphere. Weddings were usually joyful occasions, but today there was tension in the air. Margaret Harris fidgeted with the flower arrangements, even though they looked perfect. Nicholas stood at the altar, clenching and unclenching his fists. Even Pierce's friends seemed out of sorts. "Is something wrong?" the pastor asked Margaret. "Everything's fine," she replied quickly. "I just want everything to be perfect for my daughter." But Pastor Graham noticed how her gaze lingered on her husband for a moment. There was something disturbing, almost warning, in that look. The ceremony began right on time. Emily walked down the aisle with her father, and everyone noticed how beautiful she looked. Her white dress accentuated her slender figure, and her veil fell in soft waves. But an attentive observer would have noticed that her hands were trembling slightly, and her smile seemed forced. Pierce waited at the altar, and when their eyes met, there was so much love and hope in his gaze that Emily's heart skipped a beat. She knew he was a good man, that he loved her sincerely, but she also knew something he didn't. Something that could destroy not only their marriage, but his entire life. "Dear brothers and sisters," Pastor Graham began, "we are gathered here today to join Emily and Pierce in holy matrimony." The words of the ceremony flowed like water, but Emily hardly heard them. She was thinking about her conversation with her mother last night, about what Margaret had told her about family obligations, about the need to keep secrets, about how some things were better left unsaid. "If there is any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, let them speak now or forever hold their peace," said the pastor. The church was completely silent, but in that silence, Emily could hear her own heart beating loudly and desperately. She looked at Pierce, then at her parents. Nicholas avoided her gaze, and Margaret nodded slightly, as if to remind her of their conversation. "I now pronounce you man and wife," said the pastor. "You may kiss the bride." The kiss was tender and full of hope. The guests applauded, and the newlyweds walked down the aisle, officially becoming a family. But Emily felt that with every step she took, she was sinking deeper into a swamp of lies and family secrets. The reception was held at the North Glen Community Center. Margaret had organized everything down to the last detail, from the flower arrangements to the menu. The guests danced, laughed, and congratulated the newlyweds. But several people noticed that the bride looked pale and distracted. "Tired?" asked Mrs. Peterson, the Harris family's neighbor. "A little," Emily replied. "It's been a long day." But when Mrs. Peterson walked away, Emily saw her father whispering something to Pierce. The groom's face gradually changed, becoming more serious. Whatever Nicholas was saying was clearly upsetting Pierce. The evening was coming to an end. The newlyweds were to spend their wedding night at the Harris home, in the room Margaret had prepared especially for them. Tomorrow they planned to move into the new apartment Pierce had rented on the other side of town. When the last guests had left, the Harris family and Pierce were alone. Margaret was clearing the tables. Nicholas was sitting in an armchair with a distant look on his face, and the newlyweds were getting ready to go upstairs. "Good night," Margaret said, hugging her daughter. The hug lasted longer than usual, and Emily felt her mother whisper something in her ear. The words were indistinct, but the tone was warning. As they climbed the stairs, Pierce took Emily's hand. "Are you all right?" he asked. "You look troubled." "I'm fine," she replied, but her voice trembled. "I'm just nervous." A romantic setting awaited them in the bedroom. Candles, rose petals, new bedding. But romance was the last thing on Emily's mind. Her thoughts were preoccupied with what would happen tomorrow when they found themselves in their new apartment, far from her family's control. "Emily," Pierce took her face in his hands, "I love you. No matter what happens, remember that." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I love you too," she whispered. "More than you can imagine." Downstairs, Nicholas and Margaret were talking quietly in the kitchen. Their voices were tense, their words terse. If anyone could have heard their conversation, they would have known that the Harris family was keeping a secret that could destroy not only their lives, but also the life of an innocent young man upstairs. But for now, everything seemed normal. The young couple spent their first night as husband and wife. Their parents went to bed, and North Glen fell into a peaceful sleep. No one could have guessed that in a few hours, that world would be destroyed forever. Pierce woke up at 7:30 a.m. to the sounds coming from the kitchen. The sun was shining through the bedroom curtains, illuminating the empty space next to him. He reached out his hand to where Emily should have been, but the sheets were cold. Strange. She usually slept longer than him, especially on weekends. "Emily," he called softly, listening. There was a noise downstairs, Margaret's voice, but no sign of his wife. Pierce got up, threw on a t-shirt and jeans, and went down to the kitchen. Margaret was standing at the stove, making breakfast. She was dressed impeccably, as if she were getting ready for work, even though it was Saturday. "Good morning," she said without turning around. "I hope you slept well?" "Thanks, yes. Where's Emily?" Margaret froze for a second, then continued stirring the eggs. "She got up early, said she was going for a walk. You know, clear her head after yesterday." "A walk?" Pierce frowned. Emily had never been a fan of early walks, especially after a late night. "What time did she leave?" "I'm not sure. When I woke up at 6, she was already gone." Something in Margaret's tone made Pierce feel uneasy. She sounded too matter-of-fact, too calm for a mother whose daughter had disappeared on the first morning after her wedding. "Did she say where she was going?" "No, she didn't." Margaret finally turned to him. "But don't worry. Emily knows this town like the back of her hand. She'll be back soon." At that moment, Nicholas entered the kitchen. He looked as if he hadn't slept all night. His eyes were red and his hair was tousled. When he saw Pierce, he stopped abruptly. "You're not asleep," he stated. "I'm looking for Emily. Mom says she went for a walk." Nicholas and Margaret exchanged a quick glance. Pierce wasn't sure, but he thought he saw something like understanding in that glance. "Yes, she likes to go for walks in the morning," Nicholas said uncertainly. "No, she doesn't," Pierce objected. "In the year we've been dating, she's never mentioned morning walks." An awkward silence hung in the air. Margaret began busily setting the table, while Nicholas went to the window and looked out. "Maybe she went to the library," Margaret suggested. "She often said she wanted to look something up there. On Saturday morning? The library's closed." "Then maybe she went to the lake. She loves the lake." Pierce knew that Emily really loved Miller Lake, which was 2 miles from town, but going there alone, early in the morning on her first day of marriage, seemed strange. "I'll go look for her," he said. "Don't," Margaret said quickly. "She'll be back soon. Let's have breakfast." But Pierce was already heading for the door. "No, I can't just sit here and wait. If something happened to her..." "What could happen in North Glen?" Nicholas spoke in a normal tone for the first time. "Everyone knows everyone here." Pierce grabbed the keys to his pickup truck and left. Behind the wheel, he tried to calm down and think logically. Where could Emily be? The library was closed, but she had a key. She had worked there for 3 years. The lake was a possibility, or the park in the center of town, where they often went for walks. He decided to start with the lake. The road there went through the woods, and if Emily really wanted to be alone, it would be the perfect place. But he didn't see a single pedestrian on the way. Miller Lake greeted him with dead silence. The small pier where locals fished in the summer was empty. Pierce walked along the shoreline, calling his wife's name, but there was no answer. Only the echo reflected off the water. His next stop was the library. The old brick building in the center of town looked deserted on a Saturday morning. Pierce peered through the windows. It was dark inside. He tried the door, but it was locked. His anxiety grew. Pierce returned to the Harris house, hoping Emily was home. But Margaret greeted him with the same forced calm. "She's not here?" "Number I searched the lake, the library. Where could she be?" Margaret sat down at the table, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know. Maybe she went to one of her friends?" "Emily doesn't have any close friends. You know that." It was a truth that everyone preferred to ignore. Emily was withdrawn and had few friends. She spent most of her time at home, in the library, or with Pierce. "Maybe we should call the police," Pierce suggested. "It's too early," Nicholas said sharply. "She's only been gone a few hours." "She's our daughter." Margaret said quietly. And she just got married. Girls don't just disappear on their wedding night. Pierce took out his phone and dialed the North Glen police. The officer on duty listened to him with indifference. "Sir, a person is only considered missing after 24 hours. Perhaps your wife just wanted some time alone." "On her wedding night?" "It happens. If she's not back by evening, call us again." Pierce hung up, feeling frustrated. But he knew that the officer was right from a technical standpoint. The problem was that he knew Emily better than the police, and her behavior was completely out of character. "What did they say?" Margaret asked. "They told us to wait until evening." "Then we'll wait," said Nicholas. "I'm sure she'll be back soon." But the hours passed, and Emily didn't return. Pierce couldn't sit still. He called all the places she might be: cafes, shops, even the hospital where Margaret worked. No one had seen her. By lunchtime, he decided to go to Emily's only friend, Jennifer Thompson, who worked at the post office. Jennifer was surprised by his visit. "Emily? No, I haven't seen her since Thursday when she picked up the wedding invitations. What happened?" "She disappeared. This morning." "Disappeared?" Jennifer turned pale. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "She left home early this morning, and no one has seen her since." "That's strange. Emily isn't like that. She wouldn't just disappear without saying anything, especially not after the wedding." Pierce could tell Jennifer was being sincere. She really didn't know where Emily was. "Jennifer, be honest with me. Has Emily been acting strangely lately? Said anything unusual?" Jennifer thought for a moment. "Well, she was nervous about the wedding, but that's normal, right? Although..." "What?" "Over the last few weeks, she said some strange things about how some secrets are better left buried forever. I thought she was just nervous about the wedding." "What secrets?" "I don't know. She never explained. She just said that every family has things that are better left unsaid." Pierce sensed that this was important. "Did she say this in relation to anyone in particular?" "I don't remember exactly, but I thought she was talking about her family, about her parents." When Pierce returned to the Harris house, he found Margaret in tears. She was sitting in the kitchen with a handkerchief pressed to her eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I've called everyone I can think of. No one has seen her. Pierce, where is our girl?" For the first time that day, Margaret looked genuinely alarmed, but something about her behavior still seemed unnatural to Pierce. "Mrs. Harris, what did you talk to Emily about last night? I saw you whispering something in her ear." "Nothing much. Just wished her well." That took quite a long time for a simple wish. Margaret froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you were talking to her for quite a long time, and it looked more like a warning than a wish." "You're mistaken." "And what did your husband say to me during the banquet?" He looked very serious. Margaret stood up and walked over to the window. "I don't remember. You know Nicholas, he can talk about anything." But Pierce remembered that conversation. Nicholas had come up to him while everyone was dancing and said something like, "Take care of her, Pierce. And remember, sometimes it's better not to know the whole truth about the people you love." At the time, it had seemed like ordinary father-in-law advice, but now the words took on a sinister tone. By evening, Pierce called the police again. This time they listened more attentively and told him that a detective would come in the morning to file a missing person report. Pierce spent a sleepless night lying in the same bed where he had slept with his wife the night before, trying to understand what had happened. Emily's disappearance was inexplicable. She hadn't taken anything with her. No clothes, no money, no documents. Her purse was on the dresser. Her phone was charging. On Sunday morning, a police car pulled up to the Harris's house. A middle-aged woman in a business suit got out. She was tall, with short brown hair and attentive gray eyes. "Detective Sarah Mitchell," she introduced herself. "I'm here about the missing person report for Emily Collins." "Harris," Pierce corrected her. "She just got married, probably hasn't had time to change her documents yet." "I see. Tell me what happened." Pierce told her everything he knew. Detective Mitchell listened attentively, taking notes in her notebook. From time to time, she asked clarifying questions. "When was the last time you saw your wife?" "Last night, before bed. When I woke up, she was gone." "Did she leave a note?" "No." "Did she take any of her things with her?" "Nothing." "Did you have an argument?" Number quite the opposite. We were happy. Detective Mitchell turned to Margaret. Mrs. Harris, you said your daughter went out for a walk. Yes, early in the morning. What time exactly? I don't know. When I woke up at 6, she was gone. Did she often go out for walks in the morning? Margaret hesitated. Not very often, but sometimes. Mr. Harris, did you hear anything? Nicholas sat in a chair, avoiding the detective's gaze. Number, I'm a heavy sleeper. I see. The detective closed her notebook. I need to look in the room where Mrs. Collins disappeared from. In the bedroom, the detective carefully examined everything. She opened the wardrobe, checked the drawers of the chest of drawers, and looked under the bed. Pierce watched her, hoping she would find something that would help them understand where Emily had gone. Strange, the detective said. What? If a woman decides to leave, even for a short time, she usually takes at least a few things with her. A makeup bag, a comb, a change of clothes. There's nothing here. So she didn't plan on being gone for long? Or she didn't plan on leaving at all? Those words sounded ominous. Pierce sensed that the detective was thinking about something he'd rather not know. What do you mean? Mr. Collins, the disappearance of a young woman on the morning after her wedding without her belongings or a warning can only mean a few things. Either she ran away from something, or what? Or she didn't disappear of her own free will. Detective Sarah Mitchell was new to North Glen, having moved there just 3 months earlier from Cleveland. She had specifically sought work in a small town, tired of the cruelty of the big city and hoping to find peace. But her first serious case showed her that secrets and tragedies can lurk even in the quietest corners. Leaving the Harris home, she headed to the police station to begin her official investigation. The station was a small, one-story building on Main Street, staffed by only 4 people, including Police Chief Robert Clark. What do you think about the Harris girl's disappearance? The chief asked when Mitchell entered his office. Something's not right here, she replied, laying out the case files on the desk. The family is acting strange, too calm for people whose daughter is missing. Maybe they're just trying not to panic? No, Bob. I've seen a lot of reactions to the disappearance of loved ones. This isn't like normal anxiety. They're hiding something. Chief Clark was a local resident and had known the Harris family for many years. Nicholas has always been strange, withdrawn, uncommunicative, and Margaret is one of those women who likes to be in control. Tell me more about this family. Clark thought for a moment. They moved to North Glen about 25 years ago. Emily wasn't born yet. Nicholas opened a store, Margaret got a job at the hospital. A quiet, respectable family. But there was always something wrong. Nicholas would disappear from the store for hours without explanation. Margaret was too strict with her daughter, even by local standards, and Emily herself was a good girl, but very withdrawn. Were there any incidents? Complaints? Not officially, but neighbors sometimes mentioned strange noises coming from the Harris house, arguments, shouting, although when we came by, everything was quiet. Mitchell wrote this down in her notebook. I need to talk to the neighbors, and to people who knew Emily. Start with Mrs. Peterson. She lives next door to the Harrises and knows all the town gossip. Mrs. Peterson's house was 2 blocks away from the Harrises. An elderly woman with gray hair and alert eyes greeted the detective at the door. I heard about Emily, she said, inviting Mitchell into the living room. What a terrible story. Poor girl. Did you know her well? As well as you can know a child who hardly ever leaves the house. Emily was quiet, polite, but very withdrawn. What can you tell me about her family? Mrs. Peterson hesitated. I don't want to speak ill of my neighbors, but there was always a strange atmosphere in that house. What do you mean? Nicholas would yell at his wife and daughter, especially at night. Sometimes you could hear him hitting something, and Margaret kept Emily locked up like a prisoner. The girl was hardly ever allowed to go out with her friends. Were there any signs of physical abuse? I didn't see any bruises, but Emily often looked frightened, especially when her father was home. And recently? Before the wedding? Emily was very nervous. Several times I saw her crying in the garden. When I asked her what was wrong, she said everything was fine. Did she say anything about the wedding? Mrs. Peterson thought for a moment. Strangely, she didn't seem happy, For a girl who was marrying a nice guy, she seemed too anxious. What could have been bothering her? I don't know. But a week before the wedding, I saw her sitting in the garden late at night reading some old letters. When she saw me, she quickly hid them. Letters? Yes, old, yellowed. They looked like they were many years old. Mitchell wrote this down. Do you know what the letters were? No, but Emily looked as if they contained something terrible. Leaving Mrs. Peterson, the detective went to the library where Emily worked. The building was closed, but she knew that the manager, Mrs. Adams, lived in the house next door. Eleanor Adams was a middle-aged woman who had been running the town library for 15 years. She knew Emily well and was shocked by her disappearance. Emily was a wonderful employee, she said, making tea. Quiet, responsible, loved books, but lately she had been very distracted. Distracted how? She would sit at her desk for hours, staring at one spot. Several times I found her crying. When I asked her what was wrong, she said she was tired. Was she interested in any specific books or documents? Yes, it's strange. For the last 2 months, she often worked with the archive of old newspapers. She looked through issues from 20 or 30 years ago. Did she say why? She said she was researching the history of the city for some project, but I had the impression she was looking for something specific. What years was she interested in? The late 1990s to early 2000s, the period when her family moved to North Glen. Mitchell sensed that this was important. Did she find what she was looking for? I don't know. But a few weeks ago, she seemed very upset after working with the archives. She even asked permission to make copies of some articles. What articles? I don't remember exactly. Something about incidents from that time. Maybe you should check the archives? Mrs. Adams opened the library especially for the detective. In the basement of the building was the archive of the local newspaper, the North Glen Herald, with bound volumes dating back to the 1950s. Mitchell began looking through the issues from the late 1990s. Most of the news was typical for a small town: school events, local politics, sports. But in the October 15th, 1999 issue, she found an article that made her freeze. Mysterious death of a young woman. The body of 24-year-old Anna Stanley was found yesterday in Miller Lake. According to police, the young woman drowned under unclear circumstances. Miss Stanley moved to North Glen 3 months ago from Akron and worked at a local store. Witnesses report that she had been upset in the days leading up to her death. Police have not ruled out suicide. Attached to the article was a photograph of a young woman with dark hair and sad eyes. Mitchell studied the picture closely. Something about the girl's face seemed familiar. She continued her search and found several more articles about Anna Stanley. It turned out that the girl had worked at a hardware store, the same one that now belonged to Nicholas Harris. What's more, she had rented a room in a house just a few blocks away from the Harris family's current home. The last article, published a week after her death, read, "The police have closed the case of Anna Stanley's death. The official cause of death is accidental. The girl will be buried in the city cemetery." Mitchell made copies of all the articles. As she left the library, she pondered the possible connection between Anna Stanley's death and Emily Harris's disappearance. 25 years ago, a young woman who worked in a store now owned by the missing girl's father had died in the city. Her next stop was the cemetery. The North Glen City Cemetery was small, and it wasn't hard to find Anna Stanley's grave. It was a simple headstone with a name and dates. Anna Stanley, 1975 to 1999, rest in peace. What made Mitchell freeze was the fresh flowers on the grave. White lilies that looked as if they had been placed there recently, perhaps a few days ago. "Someone visits this grave," she muttered. The cemetery caretaker, an old man named Henry McDonald, had worked here for 40 years. He remembered Anna Stanley's funeral. "Strange funeral," he said. "Hardly anyone was there, just a few people from town." "Do you remember who?" "The owner of the store where she worked. Nicholas, I think his name was. His wife, a few other people." "Has anyone visited the grave recently?" "Yes, someone brings flowers regularly, always the same ones, white lilies." "Have you seen this person?" "Several times. A young woman. She comes early in the morning or late at night when there are few people around. Can you describe her? Dark hair, thin, she looks very sad, always alone. The description matched Emily. Mitchell felt that she was close to solving the case. Back at the station, she found Pierce in the hallway. The young man looked exhausted. He clearly hadn't slept for 2 nights in a row. "Any news?" he asked. "Pierce, I need to ask you a few questions. Did Emily ever mention the name Anna Stanley?" "No, I don't think so. Who is she?" "A woman who died in North Glen 25 years ago. She worked at the store that now belongs to Emily's father." "I don't see the connection." "Pierce, Emily visited this woman's grave regularly. She brought flowers." "That's impossible. She never mentioned going to the cemetery." Nevertheless, the caretaker identified her from the description. Pierce sat down on a chair, trying to digest the information. Why would she visit the grave of a woman she didn't know? Maybe she wasn't a stranger. "Pierce, what do you know about the Harris family's past? About the time they moved to North Glen?" "Almost nothing. Emily didn't like to talk about the past. She said her childhood was uneventful." "What about her parents? Did they talk about why they moved?" "Nicholas said he wanted to start his own business in a small town. Margaret said she wanted to live in a quiet place. But sometimes I felt like they were hiding something, especially when the conversation turned to the past. They would immediately change the subject." Mitchell wrote this down. "Pierce, has Emily been acting strangely lately? Said anything about family secrets?" "Yes, she did. She said that every family has things that are better left unknown. I thought she was just nervous about the wedding." "Did she say that in relation to anything specific?" "I don't remember exactly, but she mentioned several times that some secrets can ruin people's lives." "Whose lives?" "I don't know. Mine? Yours?" She didn't explain. At that moment, Nicholas Harris entered the station. He looked distraught and was holding an envelope. "Detective, I need to talk to you," he said. "About what?" "About Emily, about what might have happened to her." Mitchell took him into her office. Nicholas sat down opposite her and placed the envelope on the table. "What's this?" "A letter. Emily left it before she disappeared." "Where did you find it?" "In my office. She hid it in my desk drawer." Mitchell opened the envelope. Inside was a sheet of paper covered in uneven handwriting. "Dad, if you're reading this, it means I've done what I should have done a long time ago. I can't live with this secret anymore. Anna Stanley didn't deserve what happened to her. And I can't make Pierce live a life of lies. I'm sorry. Forgive us all. Emily." The detective reread the letter several times. "Mr. Harris, what does this letter mean?" Nicholas sat with his head down. "I can't. I'm not ready to talk about this. Mr. Harris, your daughter is missing. This letter may help find her." "You don't understand. If I tell the truth, it will destroy not only my life, but my wife's life as well. What happened to Anna Stanley?" Nicholas was silent for a long time. Then he raised his head and Mitchell saw fear in his eyes. "She didn't drown by accident," he said quietly, "and it wasn't suicide." "What do you mean?" "Anna was murdered, and Emily knows it." Detective Mitchell stared intently at Nicholas Harris, trying to gauge his sincerity. The man sat with his hands clenched into fists, looking as if every word was causing him physical pain. "Mr. Harris, I need the whole truth. Who killed Anna Stanley?" Nicholas closed his eyes. "It's a long story, and a very painful one." "We have time. Your daughter is missing, and it may be connected to that murder. Anna worked in my shop. She was a special girl. Smart, kind, but very lonely. She had no family, no friends. She came to North Glen to escape something." "From what?" "From a rapist. Her ex-boyfriend who beat her. She thought she'd be safe in a small town." Mitchell wrote down every word. "Go on." "My wife Margaret has always been jealous. When I hired Anna, she became suspicious that there was something going on between us." "And was there?" "No," Nicholas said sharply. "I never cheated on my wife. But Anna was young, beautiful, and my marriage was already on the rocks." "What happened that night?" Nicholas was silent for a long time, struggling with himself. "Margaret made a scene with Anna in the store. She accused her of seducing me. Anna was upset and left early. And Margaret went after her. She said she wanted to apologize, but instead, what did your wife do?" "They met at the lake. Anna was walking there, trying to calm down. Margaret approached her, and they argued. Margaret pushed her. Anna fell and hit her head on a rock. Did she die right away? No. Margaret panicked and pushed her into the water. Anna was unconscious. She drowned. The detective felt a chill in her stomach. Your wife killed Anna Stanley. It was an accident. Margaret didn't mean to kill her. But she didn't call for help. She didn't try to save her. She was in a panic. She came home and told me everything. We decided to keep quiet. 25 years. Yes. Mitchell put down her pen. And how did Emily find out the truth? A few months ago, she found some old documents in the house. Letters that Anna had written but never sent. Margaret kept them as a reminder. A reminder of what? That she was capable of murder. Did Emily confront you? Yes, she was terrified, especially when she realized she was about to get married with this secret. She didn't want to build a marriage on a lie. Is that why she disappeared? I don't know. She had been very withdrawn in the last few weeks. She said she couldn't live with the knowledge. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. A young officer, Tommy Rodriguez, entered with an agitated look on his face. Detective, sorry to bother you. We have a problem. What kind of problem? We found a body. Mitchell felt her heart skip a beat. Emily? No, ma'am. Pierce Collins. The world seemed to stop. Nicholas turned pale and clutched his chest. The detective jumped up. Where? At the old bridge over Deer Creek. A fisherman found him an hour ago. How did he die? Looks like a gunshot wound. One shot to the chest. Mitchell grabbed her jacket and radio. Secure the scene. Don't let anyone in. Call the coroner. Nicholas tried to stand up but staggered. Is Pierce dead? Mr. Harris, you need to stay here. We'll talk later. But my daughter. That's why you need to stay. Emily may try to contact you. It took 15 minutes to reach the bridge. The old stone bridge crossed a stream 2 miles from town, in a spot rarely visited by tourists. It was the perfect place for a murder, secluded but accessible. Pierce's body lay at the foot of the bridge, partially hidden by bushes. Coroner David Stone was already working at the scene. What can you tell me? Mitchell asked. Male, 26 years old, one gunshot wound to the chest at close range. The caliber is most likely a .38. Death occurred approximately 12 to 18 hours ago. So, last night or early this morning. Yes, judging by the position of the body, he was killed here and not moved. Mitchell surveyed the area. Any signs of a struggle? Minimal. The victim may have known the killer and not expected to be attacked. Weapon? None found. The killer took it with him. The detective searched the area for clues. In the bushes nearby, she found something shiny. A gold chain with a small cross. It was the same one she had seen around Emily's neck in the wedding photos. David, this is important, she said, showing him her find. The victim's necklace? Number his wife's Mitchell carefully placed the necklace in an evidence bag. If Emily was here when Pierce was killed, then she was either a witness or... Detective! Officer Rodriguez shouted. There are tire tracks here! The tracks led from the road to the bridge. Wide tires, possibly from an SUV or pickup truck. Mitchell photographed them and made plaster casts. Tommy, I need you to check who in town has cars with tires like these. That could take a while. We don't have that. Emily Harris is in danger. If she didn't kill her husband, the killer could be after her. Back at the station, Mitchell found Margaret Harris. The woman was sitting next to her husband, and both looked devastated. Mrs. Harris, I'm sorry to tell you that your son-in-law is dead. Margaret covered her face with her hands. Oh God, poor boy, what about Emily? We're looking for her. Mrs. Harris, I need to ask you a few questions. Now? Yes. Where were you last night between 6 and midnight? At home, with my husband. Is that true, Mr. Harris? Nicholas nodded. We were home all evening. Can anyone confirm that? We didn't see anyone. Mitchell took out the chain. Mrs. Harris, do you recognize this? Margaret turned pale. This is Emily's necklace. Where did you find it? At the scene of your son-in-law's murder. What does that mean? It means Emily was there when Pierce was killed. The question is, as a witness or as the killer? Emily is incapable of murder, Margaret exclaimed. Are you capable of it, Mrs. Harris? Silence hung in the air. Margaret stared at the detective with growing horror. What do you mean? Your husband told me about Anna Stanley. Margaret turned sharply to Nicholas. What have you done? I had to, Margaret. Emily is missing. Pierce is dead. This has gone too far. You've ruined our life. You ruined our life 25 years ago when you killed an innocent girl. Margaret stood up and began pacing the office. It was an accident. I didn't mean to kill her. But you didn't help her when she was drowning. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. Mrs. Harris, where is your daughter? I don't know. If I did, would I be sitting here? Perhaps. If you're trying to hide the fact that you killed her husband. I didn't kill Pierce. Then who did? Emily? Emily didn't kill her husband. She loved him. But she knew the family secret. She knew that if she married him, she would be lying to Pierce every day. Margaret sat down and covered her face with her hands. She was so upset. She said she couldn't live with the secret. What happened on the night of the wedding? Emily didn't sleep. I heard her walking around the room. In the morning, she was gone. Where could she have gone? I don't know. Maybe to the lake. She often went there when she was upset. The same lake where Anna Stanley died? Yes. Mitchell felt she was beginning to understand what was going on. Mrs. Harris, did Emily threaten to tell the truth? She said she couldn't marry Pierce with a secret like that. And what did you say? That some secrets are better left buried forever. That the truth could destroy many lives. But she didn't agree. She said she would tell Pierce everything after the wedding. At that moment, Chief Clark burst into the station. He looked agitated. Sarah, we have a witness. Mrs. Jenkins saw a car at the bridge last night. What kind of car? A dark SUV. She doesn't remember the make, but she said she saw two people. A man and a woman? Yes. And one of them was Pierce Collins. And the other? A woman with dark hair. Mitchell turned to Margaret. Do you have a dark SUV? Yes, but make? Ford Explorer. Color? Dark blue. Mrs. Harris, you're under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Pierce Collins. It wasn't me, Margaret cried. It was Emily. What? Emily asked Pierce to meet her at the bridge. She said she had something to tell him. I followed them. And what did you see? Emily told him the truth about Anna Stanley, that I killed her. Pierce was in shock. He started yelling at her, accusing her of lying to him. And then what happened? They argued. Pierce said he couldn't be married to the daughter of a murderer, that he would go to the police. And then, Emily took out a gun. She had brought it from home. Your gun? Yes, it was in the dresser drawer. And Emily shot her husband? Margaret cried. She didn't mean to. She just wanted to stop him. But the gun went off. Where is Emily now? I don't know. After the shot, she ran into the woods. I tried to catch up with her, but she disappeared. Why didn't you call the police? Because she's my daughter. I couldn't betray her. Mitchell pondered what she had heard. Margaret's story sounded plausible, but something didn't add up. Mrs. Harris, if Emily shot her husband in the heat of the moment, why did she take the gun with her? What? You said she brought the gun from home. That suggests the murder was premeditated. Margaret froze. I didn't mean it that way. Or you're lying. Maybe you killed Pierce to protect a family secret? No. Or maybe Emily threatened to tell the truth, and you killed them both? Emily is alive. Prove it. Margaret was silent, realizing she had backed herself into a corner. Detective Mitchell knew she was getting closer to the truth, but she still had more questions than answers. One thing was clear. The Harris family had kept a murder secret for 25 years, and now that secret had led to another murder. The question was, who was the killer, Emily or her mother? And where was the young woman now? A phone call interrupted her thoughts. The sergeant on duty reported that a bag containing Emily Harris's documents had been found at the city bus station. She tried to leave town, he said, but the cashier remembers her. The girl bought a bus ticket to Cleveland, but changed her mind at the last minute. When was that? Yesterday afternoon, around 4 o'clock. Mitchell looked at her watch. That was a few hours before Pierce was murdered. So Emily could have been at the bridge that evening. But was she there as the killer or as the victim? Detective Mitchell stayed up all night analyzing the facts of the case. By morning, She had a picture in her mind, but some details still didn't add up. She decided to return to the scene of Pierce's murder in daylight. A surprise awaited her at the bridge. In the bushes, which had not been searched thoroughly the day before, Officer Rodriguez found a notebook. The tattered notebook was covered in dirt, but the writing inside was legible. "That's Emily's handwriting," Mitchell said, flipping through the pages. Most of the entries were dated from the last few months. The girl had been writing down her thoughts and fears after learning the truth about Anna Stanley's death. March 15th. Found letters in my mother's dresser. Anna wrote about her fears, about Margaret threatening her. How could my mother keep this? March 20th. Talked to my mother. She said it was an accident, but in the letters, Anna mentions that my mother was watching her. April 2nd. I can't sleep, I can't eat. How can I marry Pierce knowing this? But if I tell him, it will destroy everyone. May 10th. I've made up my mind. I'll tell Pierce after the wedding. He has a right to know who he's marrying. The last entry was made on her wedding day, June 15th. Today is my day, but I feel like I'm going to a funeral. My mom talked to me again. She said that if I told Pierce the truth, I would not only destroy our family, but ruin him. That he couldn't live with that knowledge. Maybe she's right. Mitchell photographed all the pages. The diary confirmed the theory that Emily had planned to tell her husband the truth. But did he say that she was ready to kill him? Returning to the station, the detective found an unexpected visitor. A young man in his 30s was sitting at the desk with a nervous expression on his face. "Detective Mitchell? I'm Marcus Taylor. I work at a gas station on the outskirts of town. How can I help you?" "I heard about what happened to Pierce. I want to tell you something important." "I'm listening." "The night before last, on her wedding day, Emily Collins came to my gas station. It was around 11 o'clock at night." Mitchell became alert. What was she doing? She was filling up her car, a dark blue Ford Explorer, and she bought some strange things. "Like what?" "A gas can, rope, a flashlight, and she asked for directions to the old coal mines outside of town." "Coal mines?" "Yes. There are abandoned tunnels there. It's a dangerous place. No one goes there." "What did she look like?" "Very tense. Her hands were shaking. I asked if she was okay, but she said she was just tired." "Are you sure it was Emily?" "Absolutely. I've known her since childhood." Mitchell thanked Marcus and immediately called out a search party. The old coal mines were 20 miles outside of town. If Emily had gone there the night after her wedding, it changed everything. The road to the mines ran through the forest. The team consisted of 4 officers and a search dog. Mitchell drove ahead, thinking about possible scenarios. The abandoned mines were a series of entrances to old tunnels, closed off with metal grates. Most of them were welded shut, but one entrance was open. "There are tire tracks here," Officer Rodriguez reported. "Fresh ones." The dog led the group to the mine entrance. An empty gasoline canister lay at the entrance, the same kind Emily had bought. "Someone's been here recently," Mitchell said. "Let's check inside." The tunnel went deep into the mountain for several hundred meters. Flashlights illuminated the stone walls, covered with moisture and moss. The air was stale and cold. About 100 meters from the entrance, they found what they were looking for. In a small side chamber lay Emily Harris. She was alive but unconscious. Next to her was an empty bottle of sleeping pills. "Call an ambulance!" Mitchell shouted, crouching down next to the girl. Emily was pale and breathing shallowly. Her pulse was weak but steady. Next to her lay a piece of paper, a suicide note. "I couldn't live with what I did. Pierce didn't deserve to die. He was a good man, and I killed him because of my own weakness. Mom was right. Some secrets have to die with us. I'm sorry. Emily." The ambulance took Emily to North Glen Hospital. The doctors said she would need a large dose of sleeping pills, but her life was not in danger. A few hours later, she regained consciousness. Mitchell was sitting by the hospital bed when Emily opened her eyes. "Detective?" she said weakly. "Yes, how do you feel?" "Terrible. I wanted to die." "Why?" "Because I'm a murderer. I killed Pierce." Mitchell studied the girl's face closely. "Emily, tell me what happened at the bridge." Emily closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I asked him to meet me. I said I had something to tell him. And what did you tell him? The truth. That my mother killed Anna Stanley. That we'd been hiding it for 25 years. How did he react? At first, he didn't believe me. Then he got angry. He said I'd lied to him, that our marriage was based on a lie. And then what happened? He said he was going to the police, that he couldn't be married to the daughter of a murderer. I begged him not to, told him it would destroy my family. Emily, where did you get the gun? I took it from home. It was in my parents' dresser. Why? I don't know. I guess I thought I could scare him, make him shut up. And you shot him? Emily was silent for a long time. Yes. When he turned to leave, I shot him in the back. Mitchell wrote down the statement, but something bothered her. Emily, the coroner said that Pierce was shot in the chest, not in the back. What? The wound was in the front. That means he was facing the shooter. Emily looked at the detective in confusion. But I remember shooting him in the back. Maybe you're mistaken? I don't know. It all happened so fast. At that moment, a nurse entered the room. Detective, you're wanted downstairs. They say it's urgent. Mitchell went down to the lobby where her boss, Clark, was waiting with a grim expression. What happened? Margaret Harris tried to kill herself in her cell. We saved her, but she wants to make a statement. What kind of statement? She says Emily is lying, that she killed Pierce. At the hospital where Margaret was being held under guard, the woman looked devastated. Her wrists were bandaged after her suicide attempt. Mrs. Harris, did you want to say something? Emily didn't kill Pierce. I did it. But she confessed. She's protecting me, like I once protected her. Tell us what really happened. Margaret sighed heavily. Emily asked Pierce to meet her at the bridge. She wanted to tell him the truth about Anna Stanley. I followed them. And what did you see? Emily told him everything. Pierce was in shock. He screamed that he was going to the police, that he couldn't be married to a murderer's daughter. And then I came out of hiding. I had a gun. I couldn't let him destroy our family. Did you threaten him? I told him that if he told anyone, he'd be sorry. But he laughed. He said I was crazy, that we both belonged in jail. And you shot him? Yes, right in the chest. Emily screamed and fell to her knees next to him. I told her to be quiet, that I'd tell the police she killed her husband. Why? Because I was already a murderer. Emily was innocent. She had her whole life ahead of her. But she believed she killed Pierce? I told her she pushed my hand when I fired, that it was her fault. Emily was in shock. She believed me. Mitchell understood that this was the truth. Margaret's maternal instinct had compelled her to protect her daughter, even at the cost of her own freedom. Mrs. Harris, why did you decide to confess now? Because Emily was trying to kill herself because of a guilt she doesn't deserve. I can't let her die for my sins. An hour later, Mitchell returned to Emily. The girl listened to the truth about what had happened at the bridge with a look of growing relief and horror. Mom killed Pierce? Yes, and 25 years ago she killed Anna Stanley. And I didn't kill my husband? Your mother made you believe that to protect you. Emily cried. From relief, from grief, from the horror of realizing who her mother really was. What happens now? Your mother will stand trial for 2 murders. Your father will be charged with concealing a crime, and you are free. Free? Emily laughed bitterly. My mother is a murderer. My husband is dead. How can I be free? Because the truth sets you free, even if it's painful. A week later, Margaret Harris was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murders of Pierce Collins and Anna Stanley. Nicholas received a 5-year suspended sentence for concealing the crime. Emily left North Glen, unable to bear the weight of her memories. Detective Mitchell last saw her at the cemetery, where she was placing flowers on the graves of Pierce and Anna Stanley. They were both innocent, Emily said. They didn't deserve to die because of our family secrets. Where are you going? I don't know. Far away from here. I'm going to start a new life. Emily, you're not to blame for what happened. I know, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Detective Mitchell watched the young woman slowly walk toward the cemetery exit. The case was closed, but its consequences would be felt for a long time to come. North Glen was once again a quiet town, but now its residents knew that even the most peaceful places could hide terrible secrets, and that sometimes the price of silence becomes too high. The Harris family's secrets destroyed 4 lives: Anna's, Pierce's, Margaret's, and Emily's. Only the truth, no matter how painful, could put an end to this tragedy.